See this? This is my thinking cap. And for these series, I have needed them. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, bringing you my prediction video for the NHL Round 3, and holy crap. You know, just looking at the way that the series have gone so far, I actually consider myself relatively lucky to be 5-7 in my predictions, because just the upsets have been coming all over the place, left, right, and center. And these series have been very tough to call, and we have the Eastern and Western Conference Championships, which have been equally difficult to call. So let's get right into it. We'll start with the East, of course. The Eastern Conference Championship is a number 1 seed versus a number 6 seed, where you have the number 1 seed New York Rangers taking on the number 6 seed New Jersey Devils. Of course, the Rangers dispatched of the number 8 seeded Ottawa Senators, who I had to think for a second, in 7 games in the first round, and then just last night dispatched of the number 7 seeded Washington Capitals in 7 games. That's how they got here. New Jersey beat the number 3 Florida Panthers in the first round, and beat the number 4 Philadelphia Flyers in the previous round, and that is how they got there. I believe they beat the Panthers in 7 games and beat the Flyers in 5. Alright, you guys all know how these work. I talk about personal bias, home ice advantage, scoring edge. At the recommendation of someone who left a comment on the previous video, I've split defense up into 2, because he made a very good point that I talk about defensemen, but I don't talk about like offensive defensemen versus defensive defensemen and the way that they're playing. So I split the defensive edge up into offensive defensive edge and defensive defensive edge. Goaltending edge, of course, coaching edge. I got rid of intangibles from the first round, of course. I've replaced that with playoff experience. I took a look at the number of players on each team that has at least 50 games of playoff experience. The home versus away, I've adjusted a little bit to playoff home versus away, because a lot of what happened in the regular season you can kind of throw out the window now, because it's playoff hockey. It's a whole different beast. And I've also added a question mark for each team. So each team that we talk about is going to have a question mark, like something that they're going to have to overcome in order to win this series, because at this point these series are so close. So sorry, once again, the East 1 versus 6, number 1 ranked New York Rangers versus number 6 New Jersey Devils. My personal bias here goes towards the Devils. I don't know if I'll call myself a Devils fan, but when you put them up against the Rangers, it's not really that I dislike the Rangers. I'm fairly ambivalent to them, except Tortorella, who I don't like. I have a slight edge towards the Devils, so plus they're David Putty's team, so you know. So I gave a slight edge to New Jersey. That's also for my buddy Chris Rankin, because he'd be mad at me, I don't think, if I didn't give my personal bias to New Jersey. Home ice advantage, I'm not giving one. And here's why. Yes, if it comes down to Game 7, New York will have 4 games at Madison Square Garden. But Madison Square Garden and the Prudential Center, where the Devils play their games, are literally separated by 9 miles as the crow flies. There's no home ice advantage here. There's going to be tons of New Jersey Devils fans in Madison Square Garden. There's going to be tons of New York Rangers fans in the Prudential Center. So I'm not giving home ice advantage to either team. Maybe you think that's wonky, too damn bad. These are my predictions. Scoring edge, I have to give to New Jersey. In the playoffs, goal scoring is 36-29 for New Jersey. And in the regular season, the Devils had 7 players that averaged at least a half point a game. So I have to give the scoring edge here to New Jersey. Offensive defensive edge, I have to give to New York. New York in these playoffs have received 26 points from their back end versus just 20 for the Devils. The Devils have their top pair that's producing, whereas the Rangers have their top 2 pair that are all producing points in these playoffs. So as far as scoring from your defensemen, give that edge to New York. In terms of defense from the defensemen, I also have to give that edge to New York. These guys are shot-blocking machines. New York's back end in these playoffs have blocked 158 shots through the first 2 rounds. And they have a lot of takeaways. The defensemen account for 36 takeaways so far in 14 games. Better than 2 takeaways a game just from the defensemen. So I had to give the defensive edge. That seems so weird to say. The defensive edge, I also have to give to New York. Goaltending edge, I give it to New York, but it's very slight. Both of these guys in the playoffs have put up very good numbers. I believe Brodeur's save percentage in the playoffs is .920, so it's very, very good. Lundy's numbers are just a little bit better. So I have to give, it hurts me, but I have to give the defensive edge to the goaltending edge, sorry, to the Rangers. Coaching edge, I also have to give to the Rangers. I really like Peter DeBoer, and I really like what Peter DeBoer has done with that team, turning it. They're not run and gun, mind you, but they're definitely more two-way than they used to be, with a higher emphasis on offense. And I think that's something that New Jersey has needed for the last little while. But Tortorella's got the resume. Tortorella's got the record. DeBoer is still developing that record. Has a very good record in the OHL, former Kitchener Rangers coach, but he needs more development as an NHL coach. He needs to continue his development. The edge in playoff experience, I give to New Jersey. The Devils have 8 players on their roster with at least 50 games of NHL playoff experience, whereas the Rangers, I believe, only have 3. Brad Richards, Ruslan Fedotenko, and I can't remember who the third one is. With at least 50 games of playoff... Lundqvist, of course. They only have 3 players with 50-plus games of playoff experience. New Jersey has 8, including Martin Brodeur with 193 career playoff games. That is a huge edge in playoff experience, especially this deep in the playoffs. It's been made very well known, of course, that Henrik Lundqvist, this is his first time getting into the 3rd round of the playoffs. We'll have to see how he reacts to that. Playoff home versus away. The Rangers are 5-3 at home in these playoffs and 3-3 on the road. The Devils are 4-1 at home in these playoffs and 4-2 on the road. The Rangers question mark. Obviously, having played both of the first rounds to 7 games, no team in NHL history has played 14 games in the first 2 rounds and gone on to win the Stanley Cup. But the Rangers have played almost 900 minutes of hockey in the first 2 rounds. It's basically the equivalent to 15 games, not 14. Of course, they had that triple overtime game in Game 3 against Washington. How is it going to affect them? If this series goes deep, if this series goes 6 games, 7 games, how is it going to affect the Rangers' wind? Especially for a team that has very little experience being this far before, outside of Fedotenko and Richards. The Devils question mark. The Devils haven't played a hockey game in 5 days. Or it'll be 6, I guess, by the time the puck drops for these guys on Monday. So 5 to 6 days between games is a long time to be off. Yes, they've been practicing, and yes, they're getting I believe, Volchenkov and, is it Zidlichky? No, it was another, I can't remember his name now. They're getting a couple of their puck-moving defensemen back off of injury, but again, it's 5 to 6 days between games. Is that going to be a good thing for them? DeBoer seems to think it's going to be a good thing, or will it be negative? Are they going to show some rust? Going to have to wait and see. Who do I think is going to win the series? This playoff has been plagued by upsets. You have number 1 seeded Vancouver losing in the first round. Number 2 seeded St. Louis losing in the second round, both to the same team. Florida being upset by New Jersey. Pittsburgh, a lot of people said that Philly beating Pittsburgh was an upset. Boston being upset by Washington. There's been a lot of upsets in these playoffs. So why not one more? I am predicting the New Jersey Devils in 7 games will defeat the #1 ranked New York Rangers. I think they're going to split the first 2 games at Madison Square Garden. I think they're going to split games 3 and 4 at the Prudential Center. I think New York is going to come back on home ice and win Game 5. I think New Jersey is going to come back on home ice and win Game 6. And in Game 7, the third Game 7 for the Rangers in these playoffs, I think, is when they're finally run out of gas. Jersey is going to go into Madison Square Garden and win Game 7 on the back of a massive performance from Martin Brodeur. And the Devils will win this series 4-3 to move on to the Stanley Cup Finals to represent the Eastern Conference. What about the West? Who is going to be their opponent in the West? The Western matchup is a 3 versus 8. So again, had to be a couple upsets in there for a 3 versus 8 to be the Western Conference Final. The number 3 Phoenix Coyotes versus the number 8 Los Angeles Kings. Personal bias here, I don't really have one. I'm kind of ambivalent to both teams. I don't dislike them. I'm not raw Coyotes or raw Kings, you know, but I don't dislike them. But I'm kind of ambivalent to both of them, so I really don't have a personal bias. Home ice advantage here goes to Phoenix. Scoring edge also goes to Phoenix. Playoff scoring is 29-27 for Phoenix. And in the regular season, Phoenix scored around .25 more goals per game than Los Angeles did. So I have to give the scoring edge here to the Phoenix Coyotes. The offensive-defense edge also have to give to Phoenix. They have received 23 points from their back end so far in the playoffs versus just 13 from Los Angeles. And 80 Phoenix defensemen have put 80 shots on goal versus 69 for LA. So that's a little closer, but the Phoenix defensemen are racking up points at almost a 2-to-1 clip versus LA's defense are. So the offensive-defensive edge I give to Phoenix. The defensive edge, I also give to Phoenix. This one is very close, because as I said in the previous video, I've been very impressed with the way Drew Doughty has played in these playoffs. But I look at 3 major criteria when it comes to playing defense. Hits, blocks, blocked shots, and takeaways. Hits are 107-99 for Phoenix. Blocked shots are 106-84 for Phoenix. That's a fairly big margin. And takeaways are 28-15 just by the defense. So, and that's for Phoenix as well. So Phoenix has an edge in all 3 of those categories statistically so far. So I had to give my defensive edge to Phoenix. Goaltending edge, there isn't one. Neither goaltender has really shown any chink in their armor yet. This is like God versus Jesus. Like, this is, you know, you can't give an edge either way. You really can't. Or Superman versus Batman, or anything you can look at here. You can't give an edge one way or the other. Coaching edge, I also can't give an edge. I've underestimated both of these guys. I underestimated Dave Tippett, and I underestimated Daryl Sutter. So I can't give an edge to either one of them. They're both coaching extremely well. If Sutter wasn't coaching well, he wouldn't have beaten a number 1 and a number 2 seed. If Tippett wasn't coaching well, they wouldn't have won the last series against Nashville, which they won handily. So I can't really give a coaching edge. Playoff experience. I can't give an edge in playoff experience either. Phoenix has 7 players with 50-plus games of playoff experience on their careers. The Kings have 6. So I can't, and neither goaltender really has a huge edge in playoff experience either. So I can't give an edge in terms of playoff experience. Playoff home versus away. Phoenix was 4-2 at home and 4-1 on the road. The Kings were 3-1 at home and have so far a perfect 5-0 on the road. The Coyotes question mark. The question mark for Phoenix is, how do you beat Jonathan Quick? It's a very simple question with a very difficult answer. How do you beat Jonathan Quick? The Kings question mark. how do you beat Mike Smith? A very simple question that does not have a simple answer in the least. So really, how do you beat Jonathan Quick, and how do you beat Mike Smith? You know this is going to be a very low-scoring series. Probably going to be some overtime games in there. I can't wait to see this. So who do I think is going to win and move on to play New Jersey in the Stanley Cup Final? Los Angeles is looking to become the first, I believe, the first number 8 seed to make the Stanley Cup playoffs, to make the Stanley Cup Finals. I haven't done any research into that, but I can't remember the last time it's happened. A number 8 seed making the Stanley Cup Finals and beating the number 1, number 2, and number 3 seeds to do it. The story is too good. Los Angeles Kings, I am predicting, are going to defeat the Phoenix Coyotes in 6 games to move to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think they're going to split the first 2 games in Phoenix. I think they're going to split games 3 and 4 in Los Angeles. In the Game 5, moving back to Phoenix, I believe Los Angeles is going to win that one going away. Coming back to LA for Game 6, where I think on home ice the Kings will clinch and move on to the Stanley Cup Final, setting up a Stanley Cup Final of the East number 6 seeded New Jersey Devils taking on the West number 8 seeded Los Angeles Kings. Upset City continues. Those are my predictions for the Eastern and Western Conference Championship games. Of course, as always, want to hear your predictions in the comments. Flame me out if you'd like to. Flyers fans, I hope you stick around. Those are my predictions. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. The first game of Phoenix and Los Angeles goes down tonight, Sunday night. Can't ask for anything better. Playoff hockey, baby.